Hello and welcome to this exploring session as we continue our journey through Edward IV, Part 1. This is Part 3 of our exploration of Part 1. This isn't hurting me at all. I considered going with Part 1, Episode A, B, and C, or something like that, and then I just thought, no, I'll get confused with Blake 7. It will be very, very confusing, and my brain will hurt, so I'm not going to do that. So this is Part 3. We are 3/4. This is the 3rd quarter of Part 1. Don't worry about Part 2, which was both yesterday and in the future. Anyway, so the narrative of the play so far, we've had some good times. We've had some good time rebelling from Falconbridge, who was repulsed by the good apprentices of London.
Yay!
Excellent. They're learning. It is Panto, boys and girls. It really is. Yes, there's been some rebelling that has been put down, though Falconbridge is still on the run, and King Edward is off canvassing the opinions of the populace in disguise. So King Edward is out, and he's been invited to dinner with a chap called Hobs. Hobs the tanner, who has a daughter, Nell. So all sorts of things are going on here, all of which are really exciting and interesting, he said, hopefully. I don't know, it could be a disaster. So reading today the various parts, reading Hobs the tanner and Master Shaw today is...
Hi, I'm Steve Longstaffe, scholar of early modern drama based in Lancaster in the UK.
Reading King Edward today is...
Hello, I'm Lois Potter, a retired academic, also interested in early modern drama, living in London.
Reading The Bastard Falconbridge today is...
Hello, I'm Sarah Blake. I'm an actor, writer and director living in Germany.
Reading A Headsman and Lord Mayor today is...
Hello, I'm Dan. I'm an actor based in Montpellier, France.
Performing Jane Shaw today is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good, a historian in Yorkshire.
Reading A Captain, a Messenger and First Apprentice is...
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Amisu and I'm a author living in Romford.
Reading Morton today is...
Hi, this is Sammy. He's being shy today. And I'm Tamara. I'm an actor currently stuck in Germany.
Reading Selinger today, Sans Any Animals, as far as I can tell, is...
Hi, I'm Alan. I'm not an actor, I'm not an academic, and I'm based in Suffolk.
Reading Dudgeon and Howard today is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I feel a bit traumatized today, but I'll be fine.
He'll survive. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually worse than you think. Reading Nell and Second Apprentice today is...
Hello, my name is Lynn Freitas. I'm a teacher. I live in the northwestern United States.
And I think I haven't missed anyone except for myself. I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I didn't announce myself yesterday, I just realised. I'm your host, Robert Crighton, and I will be reading stage directions and generally moving things forward and stepping in if someone has to have a lengthy conversation with their bank. So today we are going from, as numbered in the... we're following the Revels edition in terms of scene numbering, though frankly you could number these scenes in quite different ways. We've had a lot of scenes which sort of intersect with themselves in different ways, and you might want to say there are more scenes, you might want to say there are fewer. In terms of units of action, we may be on scene 14, but we could, in terms of units, be considerably higher than that, or lower. So opinions may vary, but that's where we're going from, and that's the numbering system I'm going with for this. The script was prepared for us by Greg, who was here for the first 2 days, but sadly isn't here today. But we can all just take a moment to say hi, Greg.
Hi, Greg. Hey, Greg.
As we go into scene 14, and it's the entrance of Hobbs and his daughter Nell.
Come, Nell. Come, daughter. Is your hands and face washed?
Aye, forsooth, father.
Well, you must be cleanly, I tell ye, for there comes a courtnall hither tonight. The King's Mastership's butler, Ned, spruce youth, But beware ye be not in love, nor overtaken by him, for courtiers be slippery lads.
No, forsooth, father.
God's blessing on ye. That half year's schooling at Lichfield was better to thee than house and land. It's put such manners into thee. Aye, forsooth, and no, forsooth, at every word. And you have a clean smock on. I like your apparel well. Is supper ready?
Aye, forsooth, father.
Have we a good barley bag pudding, a piece of fat bacon, a good cow heel, a hard cheese and a brown loaf?
All this, forsooth, and more. You shall have a posset, but indeed the rats have spoiled your hard cheese.
Oh, the devil choke 'em. You let me a farthing candle the other night.
What, master?
Oh, now, knave, what sayest thou, Dudgeon?
Here's guests come. Where's Helen?
What guests be they?
Cornwall and Ned the King's butcher, he says, and his friend too.
Ned the King's butcher? The King's butler. Take the horses and walk them, bid them come near the house. Nell, lay the cloth and clap supper on the board. Mass.
And exit Nell at that point. Enter King Edward and Selinger.
Mass. Here's Ned indeed, and another misproud ruffian. Welcome, Ned. I like thy honesty. Now keep his promise.
Oh, faith, honest Tanner, I'll ever keep promise with thee. Prithee, bid my friend welcome.
By my troth, you're both welcome to Tamworth. Friend, I know not your name.
My name is Tom Twist.
Believe ye that list. But ye are welcome both. I like ye both well. But for one thing.
What's that?
Eh, that I keep to myself. For I sigh to see and think that pride brings many one to extruction.
Prithee, tell us thy meaning.
Well, troth, I doubt ye ne'er came truly by all these gay rags. 'Tis not your bare wages and thin fees ye have if the king can keep ye thus fine. Either ye must rob the king privily, or his subjects openly, to maintain your probicality.
Thinkst thou so, Tanner?
Well, it is no matter what I think. Come, let's go to supper. Now, Dudgeon, oh, where be these folks?
Yes, and indeed, enter Nell and Dudgeon with a table covered.
Daughter, bid my friends welcome.
Ye are welcome, gentlemen, as I may say.
I thank ye, fair maid.
And both kiss her.
Pretty wench, by my fay.
How likes thou, Ned?
Oh, I like her so well, I would you would make me your son-in-law.
I like thee so well, Ned, that hadst thou an occupation, for service is no heritage, a young courtier, old beggar, I could find in my heart to cast her away upon thee. If thou wilt forsake the court and turn tanner, or bind thyself to a shoemaker in Lichfield, I'll give thee 20 nobles ready money with my Nell, and trust thee with a dicker of leather to set up trade.
Ned, he offers ye fair, if ye have the grace to take it.
He does indeed, Tom, and hereafter I'll tell him more.
Come, sit down to supper. Go to, Nell. No more sheep's eyes. You may be caught, I tell thee. These be liquorish lads.
I warrant you, father, yet in truth, Ned is a very proper man, and the other may serve, but Ned's a pearl in mine eyes.
Daughter, call Dudgeon and his fellows. We'll have a 3-man song to make our guests merry.
Exit Nell.
What courtnals are ye? You neither talk nor eat. Well, what news at the court? Do somewhat for your meat.
Heavy news there. King Henry is dead.
That's light news and merry for your master, King Edward.
But how will the commons take it?
Well, God be with good King Henry. Faith, the commons will take it as a common thing. Death's an honest man, he spares not the king. As one comes, another's taken away. Seldom comes the better, that's all we say.
Shrewdly spoken, Tanner, by my fay.
Oh, Tom, fill me a cup of Mother Whetstone's ale. I may drink to my friends and drive down my tale. Here, Ned and Tom, I drink to ye. If I come to the court, I doubt you'll not know me.
Oh, yes. Tom shall be my surety, Tanner. I will know thee.
If thou dost not, Ned, by my troth, I beshrew thee.
I drink to my wife that may be.
Faith, Ned, thou mayst live to make her a lady.
Gosh, her father offers nothing, having no more children but her.
Well, I would I had not, condition she had all. I have a knave to my son. I remember him by you. Even such an unthrift as one of you two that spends all on gay clothes and new fashions. No work will down with him that I fear he'll be hanged. God bless you from a better fortune. Yet you wear such filthy breeks. Were not this a good fashion? Yeah, I'd save money. Save many a fair penny.
Let that pass, and let us hear your song.
Agreed, agreed. Come. Say, Dudgeon.
And here they sing the three-man song, Agincourt, Agincourt, know ye not Agincourt, where the English slew and hurt all the Frenchmen foe, with our guns and bills brown. Oh, the French were beaten down, Morris, pikes, and bowmen, etc., etc.
Well sung, good fellows. I would the king heard ye.
So should I, Faith. I should strain a note for him. Come, take away. Let's to bed. We shall have clean sheets, Ned, but they be coarse. Good strong hemp, my daughter's own spinning. And I tell thee, your chamber pot must be a fair horn, a badge of our occupation. We buy no bending pewter nor breaking earth.
No matter, Hobbs. We will not go to bed.
What then?
Even what thou wilt, for it is near day. Tanner, gramercies for our hearty cheer. If e'er it be thy chance to come to court, inquire for me, Ned, the king's butler, or Tom of the king's chamber, my companion, and see what welcome we will give thee there.
I have heard of courtiers have said as much as you, and when they've been tried, they would not bid the friends drink.
We are none such. Let our horses be brought out, for we must away. And so, with thanks, farewell.
Farewell to you both. Commend me to the king. Tell him I would have been glad to have seen his worship here.
Come, Tom, for London, horse and hence away.
And everybody at this point has exited. The script as we got it there is missing several entrances and exits because there's sort of quite a lot of bustling and tables and stuff. And of course some singing. So it does look like Dudgeon came back on at that point to assist in the singing. So maybe Dudgeon is one of the more singing-y of the company, as it were. I put in the chat, and I'm really quite taken with this, is the sort of upwardly mobile pretensions or expectations of Hobbs there. You know, his daughter has had something of an education. And, you know, he's quite tickled by that, even though he's teasing her a little with it. You know, and it's all, you know, about appearances. We've got guests, you know, let's get all the finest stuff out. And, you know, the cheese is a bit spoiled, but you know, what can you do? That's rats for you. I'll get everywhere. So I'm really loving this, and Hobbs is, you know, clearly and rightly worried about these, you know, the potential intentions of these men, especially when they turn up and they both kiss her, as the stage direction explicitly says. And you know, so and just the way Nell's talking to her father, you know, Ned's a proper man. The other one will serve. But, you know, I thought it was such a great line. Yeah, he's all right. So there's something really nice about the way it works as a scene, and there's all sorts of things going on. So yeah, who wants to leap in? Who has thoughts? Let's start with Hobbs. Who has thoughts about Hobbs as a chap? I don't know if he seems different from yesterday, but he feels it might just be a different reader, so rather than textual. Helen.
I was rather taken with his view of the court, that a young courtier will turn into an old beggar, and that however rich and however high status the court may seem, he will do better to bind himself to a shoemaker and get a trade.
Yeah.
And I mean, this goes well with the heroic apprentices of brave London town and the newly knighted alderman and all the rest of it. That virtue is in trade rather than in politics. I don't know. Yes, politics.
Yeah, he's not impressed. I mean, I really like the offer there, which always flashes into my mind a little bit of the importance of being earnest. You know, I'll give these 20 nobles ready money.
Not even for ready money. So.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he's not unamenable to someone courting his daughter, but go into a proper trade, virtuous and honest trade. Stephen, do you have a thought on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, just say the same thing in different words, I suppose. It reminded me of the opening of Robinson Crusoe a little bit, where Crusoe, recounts the good advice given to him by his father, which is people right at the bottom have a horrible, insecure time, but so do people at the top. And so the best thing is to be in the middle, to be one of the middling sort, and that was what was going through my head. So we can sort of flip that a little bit and say that there is a sort of recognition of the precarity of life, but you put yourself in the least precarious place if you avoid top precarity and bottom precarity, as it were. So there's a kind of, the top and the bottom are much more like each other than they are like the middle.
Eric, I saw a hand.
Yeah, I was going to say there was a bit that reminded me of, what was it? Fair M? Where, you've got like 3 suitors sort of turning up, and then, what was his name? I can't even remember his name. The first one who betrayed her anyway, who sort of went, I like you, but, I'm not going to sleep with you. And then he's like trying to get engaged with somebody else as well at the same time, which is what King Edward is doing here, kind of almost, but not quite. It sounds like he wants to, but I don't know if that's just a jest or not.
Yes, we'll get into intentions later, but no, bringing up Fair M, I think is a very, very fair comparison. I'm really interested to see whether there's more interesting comparisons that could be made with this and other plays as well. Lois.
Yeah, I think Edward obviously thinks it's fun to talk about marrying somebody, and it's a good thing that neither of them, well, I hope she's not taking it seriously. Her father obviously isn't, but it's not actually terribly nice behavior. I mean, to be playing with people like that. What I thought was interesting was her use of the word forsooth, because that is really the standard middle class expression. I mean, again, from doing Eastward Ho, I know that they sort of send it up. This is the way people talk in the city. So she is actually moving into the middle classes with that. And her father is so pleased to hear her saying yes, forsooth, and no, forsooth.
Yes, that half year's schooling at Lichfield was a good investment. I've really warmed to Nobbs and this household. I really have.
And she can spin her own hemp. I mean, she's going to be an asset to any shoemaker's household.
Could I ask a question? Because I didn't look at yesterday, and I always try and find the clown, but I'm wondering if the kind of context of the play would support that. that it could be. I mean, you could play him as a kind of blunt father-in-law figure, couldn't you? And you wouldn't sort of find that lightness necessarily. So I just wondered, in terms of the character, if you like, how it has gone before now. He's been in it already, hasn't he?
Yeah, and we were sort of talking about what we vaguely talked about him as a possible clown figure, but he's not doing jokes in the same way. He's doing some witty verbal play, but he's not there going, "Ha ha! Look at me, I am a clown." At any moment, and he seemed he was guarded, and he could be quite aggressive with Edward, because he's this random stranger asking lots of questions, and his guard is up very, very quickly. So it's a question of whether that's the context of the scene making him a bit aggressive, or whether he has a blunt character throughout. It is a question I don't know if we have an answer to. Lois.
Yeah, it sort of depends if this play is by Thomas Heywood. I mean, he did play clown parts, didn't he? And he could have written Hobs for himself, but we don't know for sure that it is by him.
Yeah, he's very heavily associated with. There's lots of good circumstantial evidence that puts him in line with this. That doesn't mean there aren't other hands as well that might be of an option to be within the text as well. There's all sorts of possibilities there. But he's a good sound bet at the moment. But as we have done no other Thomas Heywood, I'm not even going to stretch with an opinion here at this stage.
Yeah, in my little research I've done on the play, I'm really straining to find how any kind of really solid connection to him. It's all very circumstantial from what I've seen. And so not having, I'm only really familiar with the captives. And if he's the hand of Sir Thomas More, yeah, there's a clown in there who's not particularly funny either, actually. But that's also I'm skeptical of that connection as well.
I see lots of hands. Alan was up earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking in terms of clown roles, we had more in Mundy's section, which was the basically the junior rebels, the peasantry who were supporting Falconbridge, who were doing rather more of a comic Three Stooges routine, without actually doing that many explicit funnies, but were basically portrayed as being somewhat thick and incompetent.
Yeah, there was a lot of good team comedy work there. Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking also that the origin of the word clown is just somebody who's from the country, and so that kind of element of plain speaking. I guess there's a spectrum, really. At some point, Tarleton comes along and makes the kind of rustic a clown in the kind of funny sense, but before that, the plain speaking countryman goes back centuries, really. So I suspect we do have a kind of a genuinely sort of subtle spectrum of gradations, which is borne out by the comments about other plays that people have been making.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, so far I've been feeling with this play that the characters come first rather than a sort of role that you might play, if that makes sense. I'm feeling that the character work and the depth of these characters is really very well drawn. That doesn't mean to say there isn't a broad outline to be played here, but there is intention and a world that these people live in. That's how it seems to me. Eric.
Yeah, no, I was just going to comment about like the fact that we're bringing food on again, and I was like, well, there's yeah, I find it interesting that it's the actors bringing the food on. They obviously, I'm guessing by this point they don't have stagehands in theater, but sort of things nailed to a table to look like food. I don't know how that would work.
Well, the question of how many additional supernumeraries might be available is a bit of an open one. There might have been more backstage support than we would expect. But yeah, it makes sense that they are characters within the narrative are doing the moving. You've got a spare hands from Nell and Dudgeon here. You've got two people, enough to carry a table. But you could always have additional supernumeraries if possible, if necessary. Helen.
Yes, it's very unlikely that they're actually carrying in a table. They'll be carrying in a board which will go on trestles. I mean, it wasn't, it was more normal to have a piece of furniture, especially in a house where you might have one main room that everything happened in. We would have now a folding table. They had a board with trestles that could be put under it. And when they say they bring it in covered, it doesn't mean there's a tablecloth over the food. It means that the covers are set for a meal.
Right. I'm going to move us forward at this point. Lots of good stuff coming up. I'm liking this. We move on to what we've got down as scene 15, and well, it's the return of Falconbridge. We haven't seen him for a little while. It's been many a scene since we heard from the rebels. So enter the Vice Admiral Henry Morton and the Captain of the Isle of Wight. With Falconbridge bound and the headsman bearing the axe before him.
Thomas Neville, yet hast thou gracious time of dear repentance. Now discharge thy conscience. Lay open thy offences to the world, that we may witness thou dost die a Christian.
Sir Harry Morton, why have you arraigned, condemned, and brought me to this place of bloody execution, and now ask if I be guilty? Therein doth appear what justice you have used. Call you this law?
Thou dost mistake our meaning, Falconbridge. We do not ask of being ignorant of thy transgression, but as urging thee to hearty sorrow for thy foul misdeeds, that heaven may take compassion on thy soul.
How charitable you would seem to be. I fear anon you'll say it is for love you bind me thus, and bring me to the block. And that of mere affection you are moved to cut my head off. Gunning policy. Such butchers as yourselves never want a colour to excuse your slaughterous minds.
We butcher thee. Canst thou deny thyself, but thou hast been a pirate on this sea? Canst thou deny but with the commonalty of Kent and Essex thou didst rise in arms, and twice assault the city London, where thou twice didst take repulse? And, since that time, canst thou deny that, being fled from hence, thou joinedst in confederacy with France, and camest with them to bum Southampton here? Are these no faults? Thou shouldst so much presume to clear thyself and lay thy blood jig us.
Hear me, Sir Harry, since we must dispute.
Dispute, uncivil wretch? What means dispute? Did not the Vice Admiral here and I, encountering with the navy of the French, attach thee in a ship of Normandy? And wilt thou stand upon thine innocence? Dispatch! Thou art as rightfully condemned as ever rebel was, and thou shalt die.
I make no question of it. I must die. But let me tell you how I scorn your threats. So little do I reckon of the name of ugly death, as, were he visible, I'd wrestle with him for the victory, and tug the slave, and tear him with my teeth, but I would make him stoop to Falconbridge. And for this life, this paltry, brittle life, this blast of wind, which you have laboured so by juries, sessions, and I know not what to rob me of, is of so vile repute that, to obtain that I might live mine age, I would not give the value of a point. You cannot be so cruel to afflict, but I will be as forward to endure.
Go to, leave off these idle braves of thine, and think upon thy soul's health, Falconbridge.
Submit, and ask forgiveness of thy king.
What king?
Why, Edward of the House of York.
He is no king of mine. He doth usurp, and if the destinies had given me leave, I would have told him so before this time, and pull the diadem from off his head.
Thou art a traitor. Stop the traitor's mouth.
I am no traitor. Lancaster is king. If that be treason to defend his right, what is't for them that do imprison him? If insurrection to advance his sceptre, what fault is theirs that step into his throne? Oh, God! Thou pouredst the balm upon his head. Can that pure unction be wiped off again? Thou once didst crown him in his infancy. Shall wicked men now in his age depose him? Oh, pardon me if I expostulate more than becomes a sinful man to do. England, I fear thou wilt rue. I fear thou wilt thy folly rue.
Thou triflest time, and dost but weary us with dilatory questions. Make an end.
Indeed, the end of all kingdoms must end. Honour and riches all must have an end. And he that thinks he doth the most prevail, his head once laid, there resteth but a tale. Come, fellow, do thy office. What, methinks thou look'st as if thy heart were in thy hose. Pull up thy spirits. It will be quickly done. A blow, or two at most, will serve the turn.
Forgive me, sir, you're deaf.
Forgive thee? Aye, and give thee too. Hold, there is some few crowns for thee to drink. Oh, weep not, man. Give losers leave to plain. And yet, i' faith, my loss I count again. First, let me see, is thy axe sharp enough? I am indifferent. Well, a God's name to this gear.
Come and yield your head gently to the block.
Gently, say'st thou. Thou wilt not use me so, but all is one for that. What strength thou hast throughout the whole proportion of thy limbs, revoke it all into thy manly arms and spare me not. I am a gentleman, a Neville, and a Falconbridge beside. Then do thy work. Thou mayst get credit by it. Or if thou dost not, I must tell thee plain, I shall be passing angry when 'tis done.
I warrant you, sir, none in the land shall do it better.
Why, now thou pleasest me. England, farewell, and old Plantagenet, if thou survive, think on my love, although it did not thrive.
And he is led forth.
As for his head, it shall be sent with speed to London, and the promised reward allotted for the apprehending him be given unto the poor of Southampton here. How say you, Captain? Are you so content?
With all my heart, but I do marvel much. We hear not of the messenger we sent to give the king intelligence of this.
Take truce with your surmises. Here he comes.
Enter a messenger.
Fellow, it seems that thou'rt slow of gait, or very negligent in our affairs. What says King Edward to our service done?
For answers me directly, and as briefly, I spoke not with him, for when I was come to Drayton Basset, where they said he was, 'twas told me there that even the night before, his highness in all haste was ripped to London. The occasion, Henry's death within the Tower, of which the people are in sundry tales, some thinking he was murdered, some again supposing that he died as natural death.
Well, howsoever that concerns not us, we have to do with no man's death but his, that for high treason here hath lost his head. Come, let us give direction as before, and afterward make back unto the shore.
And they exit. Oh, it's an interesting, interesting little scene. This Falconbridge gets his death scene, and he gets quite a good death scene on the whole, doesn't he? Gets a chance to say his piece, Falconbridge. How was? Well, go to Lois first. You wanted to leap in.
Well, it's just that Falconbridge seems to me different in this scene. I mean, he's really quite noble, witty, completely on top of the situation, very unlike the guy we saw having all these arguments with his followers and unable to keep them under control. I mean, if anything, I would say this indicates a different writer at this point.
I was thinking quite the reverse. I think it matches Falconbridge very, very well for the opening half of this of the scene. He's got that similar sort of phlegmatic language that he uses. You know, he's really quite he's quite bold in what he's saying, and then as it moves on, I mean, he's giving as much good as he gets. I thought it matched quite well. Obviously, we haven't had the same Falconbridge each time. Sarah, how's Falconbridge to you?
Well, obviously, I'm only coming to this fresh today, so I don't know what he's been like in previous scenes, but I really liked him, actually. I really enjoyed that little scene, reading it. And yeah, he did seem to change slightly as he struck me as a noble character. I don't know what he's been like in previous scenes, but he struck me as a very principled, noble character. And it was like he started off with, you know, I thought what was really interesting was when he suddenly switched and started talking to the headsman. Because the first half of the scene, he's sort of giving it all that, you know, with the guys who have arrested him, you know, Lancaster is the king, and, you know, and being quite caustic with them. And then he turns his attention to the headsman, and the headsman is clearly moved. I mean, maybe the headsman's a Lancastrian as well, secretly. I don't know, but the headsman's clearly moved by what he's about to do. And he actually sort of then becomes really, really human and starts geeing up and saying, come on, you know, you're going to be all right. It's going to be fine. You're just going to take my head off and it'll be all right. And I just thought that showed a really lovely side of Falconbridge's character. It made him really human, and it made his sort of acknowledgement that he was about to die, you know, which is such a hard thing for humans to face. It made it really poignant, and it kind of made him courageous in a different kind of way. He wasn't just you know, giving it all that with his enemies. He was suddenly, you know, facing his death and still finding the opportunity to comfort someone else.
Yeah,
you know, in the process.
There does seem to be a pivot point, you know, when they say "and thou shalt die" in the scene. I mean, before that, the sarcasm is strong. His sarcasm game is incredibly strong. Oh, how charitable you would seem to be. I fear anon you'll say it's for love you bind me thus. You know, he's absolutely you know, fighting the inevitable. And then he sort of acknowledges, no, okay, you've got me. Stephen, muted at the moment.
Yeah, the word gently. I'm thinking about the way executions work on stage, because the deal is that you get a better execution, you get a quicker death as a person of certain social degree, but the implied deal is that you should be very submissive on the scaffold, that you should confess, that you shouldn't rage, and when people don't do this, it's sometimes seen as a kind of self-assertion. So remember, in Moore is on the scaffold, and he says he's going to confess, and he says, I confess His Majesty's always been very good to me. So he plays with that, and there's a kind of sense in which the true gentle or noble status does not necessarily involve submitting to the authority of the state on the scaffold. You know, that there's an element of defiance there, which fits in with what people have been saying about the character, and it all hinges on that pun of gently. When the headsman says, you know, kind of lay your head gently, or whatever he says, it could be taken to mean as a gentleman would, and then he starts riffing on that and punning on that. So I think there's I guess I'm just agreeing, aren't I, with everybody else? But you know, just because he dies doesn't mean it's done, because of the manner of his taking his leave.
Yeah, I mean, he again. There is that question of we could play around with how Falconbridge plays this scene, and I really like what Sarah did with it this time. But again, the sarcasm, Stephen flagged up, gently to the block, gently says thou will not use me. So you're not going to be gentle with me, are you? I like the way the headsman also says, none in the land shall do it better. Nobody does it better. Eric.
I was going to flag up the sort of here, you've got here are a few crowns so you can have a drink sort of in my name kind of thing. But like, would a prisoner carry money? That's what I was wondering.
Oh.
They've lost the robbers.
Yeah, someone else I'm sure can leap in on that one about giving money to the headsman.
It was very traditional that the prisoner's friends would make sure that he had enough to tip the headsman well. And someone else, was it Lynn, was talking about or was it Lois, who was talking about people used to wear their better clothes to be executed in because they were the hangman's perquisite, the headsman's perquisite.
We had that last week.
Mm.
Yeah, it comes up in almost every scene, I think, of execution. And it's partly, of course, too, if you really want to be well chopped and to have it only 1 or 2 blows, then you'd better tip him well in advance and be as nice as possible to him. That's why he asks about how sharp the axe is and so on. No, I mean, it's a noble scene. It's also, in a way, I guess you could say, the boilerplate execution scene, though. I mean, the execution scenes tend to give a really great speech to the guy on the scaffold, and this is what everybody's come to see. And this one is really impressive. It's also impressive, really, because he puts a strong case for Lancaster, which we haven't really had before, and it's part of the whole kind of balance of the play. Do we favor Lancaster or York? Nobody really seems to know.
And it's interesting, he only does this when it's too late.
Yeah.
He's dead. He's dead. And it's sort of this very, very late call. Lynn, then Helen.
I tend to agree with Lois's earlier observation that this feels like maybe a different author or perhaps a later interpolation. Because, I get the feeling that this is a somewhat different Falconbridge, although people change and people put on different personae in different circumstances. So it's not completely unrealistic that he could be a little bit more of a base character in the beginning who's not necessarily rebelling on principle, but more on for self-serving reasons, but puts on the I did it because I'm defending the rightful king in his last moments. But it doesn't really feel of a piece with our previous views of Falconbridge to me. And the other thing that makes this feel a little bit alien is that we have to mention again that Henry VI is dead. We already know that, so that seems a little overdetermined.
Yeah, the thing about the Henry VI being dead, I think that's more to do with what the king is coming, or there's something happening on that point. Sarah,
I got the impression, and again, I don't know quite what the order of things was because I wasn't here yesterday, but I got the impression that Falconbridge didn't realise that Henry was dead.
Yeah,
it's not mentioned till afterwards. No.
Yeah.
So like. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, Helen.
Yeah, also Henry had a son. Oh no, the son was dead by this time, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. What I was going to say was that I think one of the things that has really changed for Falconbridge is that he is no longer having to cope with spicing and his humours.
Yeah.
And keeping and lying to him and telling the army that they're going to be allowed to sack Cheapside.
And rape all the women.
Yeah, and rape all the women. And he's no longer having to deal with the whims and vagaries of his chief lieutenant, because that was something that he was constantly having to react to.
Yeah, but does this guy even sound like the man who was telling Shore, I'm going to be sleeping with your wife tonight, ha.
I'll wrestle with him for victory and tug the slave and tear him with my teeth.
I think
mean, he
it
seems,
does.
in terms of the way he uses language, he seems exactly the same. He's just in a different scene. I'm genuinely not seeing the difference here. I'm happy to concede the point, but I'm looking for examples here as to what fundamentally is different in the way he's using language.
Yeah, I think it's not so much the language, and I agree, and to some extent it is context. I mean, the thing about the history plays is that just about everybody, however vile their lives have been, comes out with some incredibly pious statement as they die, about their souls flying to heaven, or, God forgiving them their sins or whatever. That they all do it, and it just sort of, it's something that, it's a kind of knee-jerk reaction, I think.
Or I shouldn't have trusted that damn king.
I'd have got away with it if it wasn't for those pesky kids. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the change in tone from Falconbridge is he's talking to a different audience. He's talking to people he probably regards as being near social equals, rather than geeing up his rabble army. So that's one area where I think there may be some differences coming.
Well, the thing is, the only time he is genuinely different in the way he uses language is when he's talking to the lower status person, when he's talking to the headsman. He's incredibly aggressive with the captain and with Morton as adversaries. Whereas with the headsman, it's a much gentler thing, as I think that relationship with headsman tends to be. I think Lois was talking about boilerplate of, that this is the scene where you're nice to the headsman, and at some way reconcile yourself with death, and that's sort of perhaps playing with that. Other thoughts? Any other thoughts? Different, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think it took so long for Falconbridge to lose his head that I thought there would be a reprieve. There was sort of building of tension as Falconbridge was speaking, and it just kind of kept me on tenterhooks. And I thought there was going to be a last-minute reprieve for him up until the end of the scene, and I realised that no, there wasn't.
No, yeah, perhaps that's a hope from the audience. Maybe he'll get away. Maybe he'll get away. No, he does not. It's also interesting where it's placed. And it's been quite a while since we've seen Falconbridge. We've had all this separate plot line, and then I can sort of understand why it's here, but it is interesting that maybe it feels like it belongs somewhere else in the text. Eric.
I find it interesting that, they're like, where's the messenger? And it's like, oh, here he is. It's like that thing of probably Q scripts, as we've talked about before, where it's like, I wonder where that messenger has got to. It's like saying, I wonder where that delivery parcel has got to. And you're like, and then suddenly it appears.
Absolutely, yes. You have the pre-cue of we hear not of the messenger we sent, and then here he comes is literally the 3-line cue for him. Yes, it's very good. So
and he speaks.
And yes, the news of Henry's death is there, and where everything is landing. Any additional thoughts before we move on to scene 16? Okay, scene 16, reprise of the Lord Mayor. And once again, we get some details about what he's wearing, always nice, in his scarlet gown. And so there are different clothing for different occasions. But Lord Mayor in his scarlet gown with a gilt rapier by his side.
Aye, Mary Crosby, this befits thee well. But some will marvel that with scarlet gown I wear a gilded rapier by my side. Why, let them know I was knighted in the field for my good service to my lord the king, and therefore I may wear it lawfully in court, in city, or at any royal banquet. But soft John Crosby, thou forgettest thyself, and dost not mind thy birth and parentage, where thou wast born and whence thou art derived. I do not shame to say the hospital of London was my chiefest fostering place. There did I learn that near unto a cross, commonly called Cow Cross near Islington, an honest citizen did chance to find me, A poor shoemaker by his trade he was, and doubting of my Christendom or no, called me according to the place he found me, John Crosby, finding me so by a cross. The masters of the hospital at further years bound me apprentice to the grocer's trade, wherein God pleased to bless my poor endeavors. That by his blessing I am come to this, that the man that found me I have well requited, and to the hospital my fostering place, £100 a year I give forever, likewise in memory of me, John Crosby. In Bishopsgate Street, a poor house have I built, and as my name have called it, Crosby House. And when as God shall take me from this life, in little St. Helen's I will be buried. All this declares, I boast not of my birth, but found on earth, I must return to earth. But God, for his pity, I forget myself. The king, my sovereign lord, will come anon, and nothing is as yet in readiness. Where are ye, cousin Shaw? Nay, where is Mistress Shaw? Oh, I am sorry that she stays so long. See what it is to be a widower and lack a lady mayoress in such need.
Enter Shaw and Jane.
Oh, are ye come? Welcome, good cousin Shaw. But you indeed are welcome, gentle niece. Needs must you be our lady mayoress now, and help us, or else we are shamed forever. Good cousin, still thus am I bold with you. With you, Shaw.
Sorry. With all my heart, my lord, and thank ye too, that ye do please to use our homely help.
Why, see how neatly she bestirs herself, and in good sooth makes huswifery to shine. Ah, had my lady mayoress lived to see fair Mistress Shaw thus beautify her house, she would have been not little proud thereof.
Well, my Lord Mayor, I thank you for that flout, but let his highness now come when he please. All things are in a perfect readiness.
And they bring forth a table, table number 2, please, and serve in the banquet.
The more am I beholding, niece, to you, that takes such pains to save our credit now. My servants are so slack, his majesty might have been here before we were prepared. What peace, here comes his highness.
Trumpets, enter King Edward, Howard, Sellinger, and the train.
Oh, my Lord Mayor, have we not kept our word? Because we could not stay to dine with you at our departure hence, we promised that first food we tasted at our back return should be with you, still yielding hearty thanks to you and all our London citizens for the great service which you did perform against that bold-faced rebel Falconbridge.
My gracious lord, what then we did account no more than was our duty, thereto obliged by true subjects' zeal, and may he never live that not defends the honor of his king and country. Next, thank I God, it likes your majesty to bless my poor roof with your royal presence. To me could come no greater happiness.
Ah, thanks, good Lord Mayor. But where is my lady mayoress? I hope that she will bid us welcome too.
She would, my liege, and with no little joy, had she but lived to see this blessed day. But in her stead, this gentlewoman here, my cousin's wife, that office will supply. How say you, Mistress Shaw?
Oh, Mistress Shaw, what? Not his wife that did refuse his knighthood at our hand?
Ah, the very same, my lord, and here he is.
What, Master Shaw, we are your debtors still, but by God's grace intend not so to die. And, gentlewoman, now before your face I must condemn him of discourtesy, yea, and of great wrong he hath offered you, for you had been a lady, but for him, he was in fault. Trust me, he was to blame to hinder virtue of her due by right.
My gracious lord, my poor and humble thoughts ne'er had an eye to such unworthiness, and though some hold it as a maxim that women's minds by nature do aspire, Yet how both God and Master Shaw I thank for my continuance in this humble state, and likewise how I love your majesty for gracious sufferance that it may be so, heaven bear true record of my inmost soul. Now it remains, on my Lord Mayor's behalf, I do such duty as becometh me, to bid your highness welcome to his house, where welcomes virtue powerful in my word, the King of England should not doubt thereof.
Nor do I, Mistress Shore. Now, my Lord Mayor, Edward dare boldly swear that he is welcome. You spake the word well, very well, faith, but Mistress Shore, her tongue hath gilded it. Tell me, Cousin Howard and Tom Sellinger, had ever a citizen so fair a wife?
Of flesh and blood I never did behold a woman every way so absolute.
Nor I, my liege. Were Sellinger a king, he could afford Shaw's wife to be a queen.
Why, how now, Tom? Nay, rather, how now, Ned? What change is this? Proud, saucy, roving eye? What, whisperest in my brain that she is fair? I know it, I see it. Fairer than my queen? Wouldst thou maintain it? What, thou traitor heart, wouldst thou shake hands in this conspiracy? Down, rebel! Back, base, treacherous conceit! I will not credit thee. My Bess is fair, and Shore's wife but a blouse compared to her. Come, let us sit. Here will I take my place, and my Lord Mayor, fill me a bowl of wine that I may drink to your elected mayoress. And Master Shore, tell me, how like you this? My Lord Mayor makes your wife his lady mayoress.
So well, my lord, as better cannot be, all in the honour of your majesty.
The Lord Mayor brings in a bowl of wine, offers it to his king, humbly on his knees, offers it to the king.
Nay, drink to us, Lord Mayor, we'll have it so. Go to, I say, you are our taster now. Drink then, and we will pledge ye.
All health and happiness to my sovereign.
Fill full our cup. And, Lady Mayoress, this full carouse we mean to drink to you, and you must pledge us. But yet no more than you shall please to answer us withal.
He drinks and the trumpets sound. Then wine is presented to her and she offers to drink.
Nay, you must drink to somebody. Yea, Tom, to thee. Well, Sarah, see you do her right. For Edward would to God he might. Yet, idle eye, wilt thou be gadding still? Keep home, for fear of further ill.
Enter a messenger with letters.
How now, letters to us, from whom?
My liege, this from the Duke of Burgundy, and this from the Constable of France.
What news from them? To claim our right in France, and they will aid us. Yea, will ye so? But other aid must aid us ere we go.
Seems to read the letters, but glances on Jane Shore while reading.
A woman's aid, but hath more power than France to crown us, or to kill us with mischance. If chaste resolve be to such beauty tied, sue how thou canst, thou wilt be still denied. Her husband hath deserved well of thee. That love makes no respect where'er it be. Thou wrong'st thy queen. Every enforced ill must be endured where beauty seeks to kill. Thou seemst to read only to blind their eyes, who, knowing it, thy folly would despise.
Starts from the table.
Thanks for my cheer, Lord Mayor. I'm not well. I know not how to take these news, this fit, I mean, that hath bereft me of all reason clean.
God shield my sovereign.
Nay, nothing, I shall be well anon.
May it please your highness sit.
I fain with thee. Nay, we must needs be gone. Cousin Howard, convey these letters to our council and bid them give us their advice of them. Thanks for my cheer, Lord Mayor. Farewell to you, and farewell, Mistress Shore, Lady Mayoress, I should say. 'Tis you have caused our parting at this time. Farewell, Master Shore. Farewell to all. We'll meet once more to make amends for this.
And exeunt the King, Lord Howard and Selinger.
Oh, God, here to be ill, my house to cause my sovereign's discontent. Cousin Shaw, I had rather spent.
Content yourself, my lord. Kings have their humours. The letters did contain somewhat, no doubt, that did displease him.
So, my lord, think I. But by God's help, he will be well again.
I hope so too. Well, cousin, for your pains, I can but thank ye, chiefly you fair niece. At night I pray ye both come sup with me. How say ye? Will ye?
Yes, my lord, we will. So, for this time, we humbly take our leave.
And exit Shaw and Jane.
Oh, how the sudden sickness of my liege afflicts my soul with many passions. His Highness did intend to be right merry, and God he knows how it would glad my soul if I had seen his Highness satisfied with the poor entertainment of his mayor, his humble vassal, whose lands, whose life and all are, and in duty must be always his. Well, God, I trust, will bless his grace's health and quickly ease him of his sudden fit. Take away their hoe, rid this place, and God of heaven, bless my sovereign's grace.
And the servants carry away the banquet and all sorts of stuff going on there. It's really interesting. Again, we've had the use of the word humours, but the way the play seems to deploy it is not to actually suggest that anyone is following their humours. It just seems to be every time someone does something for not very good, for their own selfish reasons, they'll say, oh, it's his humours. Oh, it's my humours. Whereas there are always actually very good reasons for people to be doing things. So, the kings have their humours. Yeah, you don't want to know. Sure, you really don't want to know what his current humour is if you haven't already twigged. Very well done, Lois, for navigating the unmarked asides in the text there. King Edward should be reading his dispatch papers, but no, he's just going fana. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more. It's the way he just sees Mistress Shaw, and it's just sort of and also I just love the way the king drops a brick the moment he starts talking to the Lord Mayor. My Lord Mayor, where is your lovely wife? She's dead. Right. Who's that? Lovely. No. It's a really nice scene. I put in the chat also that the Lord Mayor starts with his origin story. And sort of just, this is how I came to be where I am. And it's really good, but it's also really random. And it's another part of this lauding up the London side of things. I'll go to Stephen first.
Well, there's another bee in my bonnet, but Crosby Place is really just down the road from the inns on Bishopgate, which we know to have been playhouse venues. Spencer, who was the Lord Mayor during martial law in '95, was living there at the time of this play, I think. So yes, it's random, but if we think about any of these plays as having had some kind of a life, or maybe even part of it, because this is a really weird one, right in the centre of London, then these are maybe not quite so random. Oh, it's something like 200 yards away from the inns on Grace Church Street.
There does seem to be an awful lot of local references being thrown in. I when I say random, no, I don't think for the playwright it's random at all. It just seems to us to be. I think Stephen's absolutely right on that. Lynn.
Well, yeah, that bit about this is the Lord Mayor's origin story. I came from who knows what. Yeah, I mean that's it, random, but interesting and consistent with this play's concern to sort of valorize the middling sort. What I was thinking in this scene, though on a completely different topic, is Edward's reaction to his sudden attraction to Mr. Shore is not what I would have expected. In his first scene, his mother is saying, you really have made a mistake marrying below your station and going back on your agreement with Warwick and your agreement with the French royal house. This is not a good thing. And he's like, I do what I want. I'm king and I do what I want. And his hesitation here saying, oh, I'm so attracted to her. Oh, she's so beautiful. Oh, I want her, but I'm married and my king is also beautiful. Oh, this would be really wrong. I wouldn't have expected that hesitancy and that ambivalence from him.
Yeah, especially as we've just come from, I mean, we don't know what happened with Nell, if anything happened with Nell, you know, whether that's just a nice little random flirtation as a little amuse-bouche before this. You know, it might be a case of, do you want to be making a mess on your own doorstep? It's a bit too close to home, isn't it? Here, and it's nice again. We're getting a little bit of interiority with Edward because he's doing asides. We haven't had much of that. We've had a little bit of that. But we haven't had a lot. And yeah, it does seem to be a struggle, isn't it? And he's trying to cover it, and he's trying to make sure nobody notices. And how successful is he? Because he starts from the table. It's like, I mustn't show them that I'm looking. I mean, that might just be an excessive stage direction. I love the way the Lord Mayor reacts to it all as well. There's a lovely social commentary here, sort of comedy thing going, oh God, the king's ill in our house. What will the neighbours say? Lois.
Yeah, you know, this reminds me terribly of Sir Thomas More. I mean, you know, there's this party in the Lord Mayor's house, and they're doing a play, and it's broken off because of important news. And there's a scene where Thomas More soliloquizes about his background and how amazing it is that he's got where he's got. I mean, this may not have anything to do with authorship. It may again be boilerplate in a sense. I mean, that there are just these tropes that are brought out, and what we've got here is the city dream, which we've already had sketched in a bit with the way they were talking to the apprentices. You know, that the city of London is a place where everybody can rise to be Lord Mayor. But I don't know, just it's interesting.
Yeah, Helen.
I'm particularly interested now in Jane Shore because I was reading her. Mm-hmm. What she's doing is in fact very unusual and extraordinary. She has remarkably little to say, which is consistent with being a good woman in early modern terms. I mean, in early modern terms, I would have done very badly in the good woman stakes. But she says remarkably little, and what she says is very much to the point. And when questions are addressed to her and her husband, it's her husband who does all the talking. The only time she really gets to voice an opinion is when the king says that she has been done an injury because her husband refused a knighthood. So she's no longer a lady. And her reply is that, contrary to popular opinion, not all women are total social climbers. And she herself is very pleased that he's turned down the knighthood. This, working on my impression of early modern women whose correspondence, etc., I have seen, and witness statements, this does not correspond with any woman, early modern woman, that I have ever encountered at all. So she is unusual in that. But nevertheless, there is nothing here that doesn't say this is a really virtuous woman by all the rules.
Eric.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like the flip side, you can kind of imagine her going, "Yes, thank you. I know I'm good looking. Yeah," like sort of being creeped out, sort of by all the attention she's getting, but like not necessarily. I mean, also because she is virtuous and married, but also because like male gaze and stuff, and it's like, yeah, this is totally like can I go now? Kind of on the verge of that, but not quite. Like, it depends how you want to play her as well.
It partly depends on where the player is going to be going with her narrative. I think that is an important question. We've said this about this play a lot, is that these scenes all give us options about how to play them. They're not saying, haha, I am black and white villain, I am this, I am that. They are giving us games. I mean, what's interesting about the way Edward is written in this scene is he seems to pick up some of the verbal tics that we were getting from Jocelyn, in the sense that he's at times, as he's getting a bit flustered, and there's something really nice about that. That it's giving, showing the way he can get a bit confused. Lois.
Yeah, perhaps it gives one the feeling that all this kind of hearty stuff that he's been doing, and this air of someone who knows he's charming, and anyway he's the king, so they all have to find him charming, is to some extent a facade. I mean, that he just puts it on for everybody's benefit.
Mm. Okay. We have any additional thoughts? Any additional thoughts to throw in there? We have got one more scene of the session. It's a relatively long one. It's sort of, I think, off the top of my head, it's looking like it's quite a long one. It seems to go on for a couple of pages. So we'll run through that and see what we get at the end of that. So scene 17. Enter two apprentices. Are they the same apprentices of the great defending apprentices of London? Or whether they're completely different random apprentices, because of course London has more than two apprentices. I think we should just make that absolutely clear. So enter two apprentices preparing the goldsmith's shop with plate.
Sirrah Jack, come set out.
You are the old elder apprentice. I pray you do it, lest my mistress talk with you when she comes down. What is it o'clock?
6 by all hallows.
Lying and stealing will bring you to the gallows. Is here all the plate?
Aye, that must serve today. Where is the weights and balance?
All ready. Hark, my mistress comes.
Exit first apprentice. Enter Jane Shaw with her work in her hand.
Sir Boy, while I attend the shop myself, see if the workmen have dispatched the cup. How many ounces weighs it?
20, forsooth.
What said the gentleman to the fashion?
He told my master I was not within.
Go, sir, make haste. Your master's in Cheapside. Take heed you are best, your loitering be not spied.
And exit the second apprentice. Jane remains on stage. She's sewing, and enter the king disguised.
Well, fair a case to put a king in yet. Good mistress Shore, this doth your love procure. This shape is secret, and I hope 'tis sure. The watermen that daily use the court and see me often knew me not in this. At Lion Quay I landed in their view, yet none of them took knowledge of the king. If any gallants strive to have the wall, I'll yield it gently. Soft, here must I turn. Here's Lombard Street, and here's the Pelican, and there's the Phoenix in the Pelican's nest. Oh, rare perfection of rich nature's work, bright twinkling spark of precious diamond, of greater value than all India. Were there no sun, by whose kind lovely heat the earth brings forth those stones we hold of price, her radiant eyes, dejected to the ground, would turn each pebble to a diamond. Gaze, greedy eyes, and be not satisfied till you find rest where heart's desire doth bide.
What would you buy, sir, that you look on here?
Your fairest jewel, be it not too dear. First, how this sapphire, mistress, that you wear?
Sir, it is right, that will I warranty. No jeweller in London shows a better.
No, nor the like. You praise it passing well.
Do I? No, if some lapidary had the stone, more would not buy it than I can demand. 'Tis as well set, I think, as e'er ye saw.
'Tis set indeed upon the fairest hand that e'er I saw.
You are disposed to jest, but for value, His Majesty might wear it.
Oh, might he, i' faith?
Sir, 'tis the ring, I mean.
I meant the hand.
You are a merry man. I see you come to cheap and not to buy.
Oh, yet he that offers fairer than I'll do shall hardly find a partner in his bargain.
Perhaps in buying things of so small value.
Rather, because no wealth can purchase it.
He were too fond that would so highly prize the thing which once was given away for love.
His hap was good that came so easily by it.
The gift so small that asked who could deny it.
Oh, she gave more that such a gift then gave than earth e'er had or world shall ever have.
His hap is ill, should it be as you say, that having given him what you rate so high, and yet is still the poorer by the match.
Well, that easily proves he doth not know the worth.
Yet having had the use of it so long, it rather proves you overrate the thing. He being a chapman, as it seems you are.
Indeed, none should adventure on the thing that's to be purchased only by a king.
If kings love that which no one else respects, it may be so. Else do I see small reason a king should take delight in such coarse stuff.
Oh, lives there a king that would not give his crown to purchase such a kingdom of content?
In my conceit, right well you ask that question. The world, I think, contains no such fond king.
Why, Mistress Shore, I am the man will do it.
'Tis proudly spoke, although I'd not believe it, were he King of England that should offer it.
But shall I have it?
Upon what acquaintance?
Why, since I saw you last.
Where was that?
At the Lord Mayor's, in presence of the king.
I have forgotten that I saw you there, for there were many that I took small note of.
Of me you did, and we had some discourse.
You are deceived, sir. I had then no time for my attendance on His Majesty.
I'll gauge my hand unto your hand of that. Look well upon me.
And he discovers himself.
Now, I beseech you, let this strange disguise excuse my boldness to your Majesty. Whatever we possess is all your Highness, only mine honour, which I cannot grant.
Only thy love, bright angel, Edward craves, for which I thus adventured to see thee.
Enter Shore.
But here comes one whom I only gave it, and he, I doubt, will say, you shall not have it.
So soon cut off, oh spite! How say you, mistress, will you take my offer?
Indeed, I cannot, sir, afford it so.
You'll not be offered fairly, I believe.
Indeed, you offer like a gentleman, but yet the jewel will not so be left.
Sir, if you bid not too much underfoot, I'll drive the bargain twixt you and my wife.
Alas, good Shore, myself dare answer no. Nothing can make thee such a jewel forego. She saith you shall be too much loser by it.
See in the row then, you can speed better.
See many worlds a row, affords not like.
And exit as he is going. Shore perceives it is the king, whereat he seemeth greatly discontented.
Why look'st thou, Matt? Know'st thou the gentleman? Alas, what ails thee that thou look'st so pale? What cheer, sweetheart? Alas, where hast thou been?
Nay, nothing, Jane. Know you the gentleman?
Not I, sweetheart. Alas, why do you ask? Is he thine enemy?
I cannot tell. What came he here to cheapen at our shop?
This jewel, love.
Well, I pray God he came for nothing else.
Why? Who is it? I do suspect him, sure, that you demand thus doubtfully of me.
Jane, it is the king.
The king? What then? Is it for that thou sighest? Were he 1,000 kings, thou hast no cause to fear his presence or suspect my love.
I know I have not. See, he comes again.
And the king enters again. He's muffled in his cloak.
Still is my hinderer there. Be patient, heart. Some fitter season must assuage thy smart. What? Will you take that, mistress, which I offered ye? I come again, sir, as one willing to buy.
Indeed, I cannot, sir. I pray ye deal with my husband, hear what he will say.
Till sell it worth your money, if you please. I pray you, come nearer, sir.
I am too near already, thou so near. Nay, she knows what I did offer her, and in good sadness I can give no more. So fare you well, sir, I'll not deal with you.
And exit the king.
You are deceived, sweetheart. 'Tis not the king. Think you he would adventure thus alone?
I do assure thee, Jane, it is the king. Oh God. Twixt the extremes of love and fear, in what a shivering ague sits my soul. Keep we our treasure secret, yet so fond a set, so rich a beauty as this is in the wide view of every gazer's eye. Traitor beauty, oh deceitful good, that does conspire against thyself and love, no sooner got but wished again of others, in thine own self, injurious to thyself. O rich, poor portion, thou good, evil thing, how many joyful woes still thou dost bring.
I pray thee, come, sweet love, and sit by me. No king that's under heaven I love like thee.
And they exit. Ooh, there's a tricksy, interesting little scene. So many things. It's a good question of precisely how comic it should be, but when King Edward comes back on, muffled in the cloak, and it's like, it's just, oh, he's here again. Drat. Yes. There's some, but it is also quite dark. There's real questions about who's lying to who at times as well, even if they're little lies. But about, do you know it's the king? And no, of course I don't know it's the king. And it's really interesting. I think there's big questions here for the actors, which we won't be able to answer until later in the play or plays, about precisely how these scenes play out. But there's all sorts of games going on here that I'm really liking. Eric, I see a hand.
I feel like what Lynn said in the previous scene just sort of got obliterated because, Edward goes, Edward craves and therefore he must have, basically.
Well, yeah, but he's thought about it for a while, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's had time to think about it, but it's like, still...
And he's sort of going about this in again, he's in disguise, he's still being very circumspect about it, so there's some he knows this is wrong. I'm sure he knows that there's wrong things here. I see lots of hands. I'll go to Stephen first.
I think it's interesting. There's a sort of politics of disguise, isn't there, even in just these few scenes, because we have the use of disguise to lessen the distance between the king and the common people, for want of a better word, and that seems to be a good thing. You know, if we could get them out the court and just sort of, you know, good fellow to good fellow. And 2 scenes later, we have a disguised duke in best kind of, you know, malcontent or other play style, abusing that that lack of distance. I think it's really interesting that we've had, what, 4 scenes, and we have both of them so close together. It seems to me to be an extraordinary rich juxtaposition.
Yeah, the play's doing a lot of juxtaposing of things. It does seem to be very nicely constructed on that level, and sort of meaning that even if we felt like the scenes with Hobs and Nell aren't necessarily directly plot related, or they don't seem to be yet, thematically they're very much doing similar things or playing with things that turn up later. I saw Elizabeth.
I was just going to talk about what Stephen was talking about the disguise. And I was thinking about the fact that we haven't seen the disguised king yet in any of our history plays. I think it's the first time we've seen a disguised king. And I thought it was a really, really useful narrative trope to disguise the king like that.
Yeah, have we had disguised prince, but not yet king?
No, we had disguised king in the first scene with Hobbs at the end of yesterday.
No, but as, in terms of other plays.
Yeah, there I am. I mean, surely William the Conqueror is calling himself Robert Windsor, isn't he? I mean, I don't know if he's disguised, but he's incognito.
It is something that gets much more interesting to the theatre, though, I think. It is explored in all sorts of ways, you know, in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yes, remember, for our journey through the theatre, we have been mostly sticking to the sort of early 1590s. We've leapt ahead here by a better part of a decade, and you know there's still several decades to go of quite a lot of drama as more plays survive the further on we go. So there's an awful lot of material that may or may not riff off these ideas. Lois and Eric.
Yeah, in some ways, this disguised king thing goes back to Robin Hood, I think. I mean, I looked at the ballad of King Edward and the Tanner of Tamworth that Helen put on Facebook. I finally discovered Facebook, and it works very much like a Robin Hood ballad. I mean, at the end of it, King Edward is blowing his horn and all these men appear out of nowhere, which is, you know, the classic Robin Hood theme. And that's all about Edward going in disguise. It's not clear what order these things are in, because a lot of ballads seem to have been written on the subjects of plays, and some plays may have been based on ballads, or people, you know, actually quote ballads in the play as if this was some sort of source for their behavior. You know, the idea that the king goes to the greenwood and finds out what life is like there and comes back a better person and usually pardons everybody and gives them all rewards. I mean, that's such a popular subject. You know, what this scene shows obviously is that there are other uses of disguise too, which are much less nice.
Yeah, it is that similarity of the other Edward that we had earlier, going and people doing things in woods, as it were, all sorts. I see lots of hands. I'll go to Eric, as I said, and then Stephen, then Lynn.
I was going to mention Musidorus, but that's not a history play. But like, you know, there is that element of like, you know, hey, we're walking into the woods and I'm going to go find my love, and sort of like, you know, well, obviously not like Edward looking for love, but like sort of a king or prince or something, sort of, yeah, suddenly not being recognized.
Yeah, it's much easier to be in disguise when you're in the middle of nowhere than it is when you're in locality where people are likely to know you. Stephen.
Well, just to link the Elizabeth's point with Lois's point, I think, but I'm stand to be corrected on this, that the Huntingdon plays, which are I think 1598, are the first ones to actually propose that Robin Hood is actually of noble birth, and therefore is in some sense disguised in the greenwood. And sometimes, you know, the Robin Hood story incorporates that idea that he is not who he seems. but from this point onwards, and they're playing with this notion of kind of inner nobility. So I think it's interesting that Robin Hood, earlier versions of Robin Hood, he's not at all connected to Locksley Hall or wherever the hell it is, and then it gets invented about this time.
Lynn.
Yeah, another trope I'm seeing here, really apart from the nobleman or the king or prince in disguise, is the trope of the head of state as sexual predator, which gets developed 5 or 10 years from now, and you see in a much more sinister version in something like The White Devil or Women Beware Women, where he doesn't bother with the disguise. He just gets the object of his desire into a literal or metaphorical corner, and coerces her into having relations with him, and then bad things happen in the long run. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out, whether this suggests that more malign version of the head of state as sexual predator, or whether we try to keep this a little less dark and more, Edward, he just can't keep it in his codpiece. It's kind of not his fault.
He could be in love. This could be genuine.
Yeah.
Did that come across as? Did you believe me when I said that? It's really interesting. I want to talk about Jane because it's really interesting question of where we place. We have got really no interiority yet for Jane. I don't know. There's something very. I mean, it's not. I'm not saying that she's a shallow character. I'm saying she's giving very little away to anyone to a degree, or that's how it's feeling to me. I don't know if others are agreeing on that. Would agree on that point. Lois.
Yeah, the fact that she essentially lies to her husband about knowing who the king is, you could do that various ways, couldn't you? I mean, she could just be trying to, in a way, protect him, keep him from feeling badly. And then once she said it, and then she realizes he does know that it's the king, she can't very well say, oh, yes, well, actually, I did know, but I thought I wouldn't tell you. I mean, that would look terrible. So she's sort of stuck with her story, once she started it. But on the other hand, of course, she could be being much less ingenuous than that.
Yes, because we don't really get any clues as to whether she's on some level welcoming these advances or not. Mm. We're just not getting data here. I mean, at this stage, if you just played this scene in isolation, the actors have freedom of movement until we know where the play is going. I mean, we can guess where the play is going, but in terms of what this character is going, that's obviously a different question. Helen, you were Jane, weren't you? Am I right?
I was.
Yes. How are you feeling about Jane? I mean, the lie feels a very plausible, real lie that you might tell in an awkward situation like this.
Absolutely. I mean, I felt that she was. I didn't feel she was lying in order to deceive. I felt she was lying in order to protect. Mm. To protect her marriage, to protect. I mean. What do you do if you are a good goldsmith's wife and the King of England tries to cop a feel? Mm. I mean, what do you do? Mm. I mean, there are, I mean, there just isn't really a good answer for her. I mean, obviously, when you read it, you identify. I feel she's doing her best in a very sticky situation.
Mm. And it's Shaw's reaction as well. I think is really the extremities of love and fear, the extremes of love and fear that he talks of there, of just going, oh God, we're screwed. It is the king. If it's the king, we're screwed. And it is the king. And so there's an emotional turmoil going on in Shaw as well, though he's more demonstrative about it, I think. I mean, Stephen, you were reading him, so do you agree?
Wouldn't it have been interesting if Jane had got some lines like that? Mm. I guess so. You know, I mean, on the one hand, it seems awfully general. It seems to be, oh, this is just a law of nature, you know, that we have these kind of strange paradoxical things that don't work out, you know, and it could be taken as philosophical, but equally, there's such strong words as a performer that you can howl your way through it. You know, traitor, beauty, you know, you can forget about blank verse at that point and just be sort of screaming, you know, because there's such strong heterogeneous ideas yoked together, you know. It's such a, so you know, how strongly felt is it, and how much of is kind of desperately filling the time with a sort of philosophical quibble, you know. But I would have preferred Jane to have been able to say it.
Yeah, the decision to keep Jane so distant in that way in the dialogue so far. I mean, Sarah's put in the chat, gone with a Jane Austen reference. Do you want to run with that?
Yeah, I do actually, because I think, I honestly think that on the one hand, as a modern audience, we would love her to have some of that interiority, but I actually think she's more, she has more impact because she says less. And yeah, I put in the chat, she reminds me of an Austen heroine. I was thinking specifically for those people who are Austen aficionados, of Anne Elliot in Persuasion. Incredibly quiet, incredibly circumspect, and still waters are running really deep within her. So if you're that sort of person, you are not necessarily going to be spilling your interior monologue. However, that does not mean that the actor playing her, if they choose to go down that route with her, couldn't sort of create that impression of still waters running very deep, and the fact that she's thinking on her feet and thinking extremely fast in certain places where she's kind of, you know, having to parry the king, and then when she's more kind of authentic or less guarded is a better way of saying it, because I think she's authentic all the way through, but she's less guarded when she's with her husband. Yeah, I could absolutely see this being Anne Elliot in like 10, 15 years time after the end of Persuasion. And I mean, I was going to save this for the end, but I just think the writing in this play is so good. The characterization is so good. It opens up all sorts of possibilities for the actors. It's all there in the script. It's up to the director and the actors just to decide how they're going to which direction they're going to take it off in.
Yeah, and we have had a little bit of interiority or you know, more active emoting in the sense of the first scene we had with Jane. She's going to her husband, don't go out to the fight. I kind of would like you not to die. So she, you know, it's not that she's not capable, it's just she is in these situations where she's there's difficulties of what to say and choosing. Helen.
I always think that there's a limited amount of emotional space in any scene, and Shaw is rather filling it. So you can't really have them both emoting like mad unless they're doing it from different sides of the stage. It's sort of in parallel. And I think that his dilemma, his horror, his distress is rather taking up the emotional space. You've also got the problem that the audience will know what happens. And consequently, if she starts giving an interior monologue in which you are supposed to believe, saying how she is chaste and how she is pure and how she is distressed by all this, people are going to have less sympathy with her because they know what happens.
Lois, then Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of ways you could play this. And of course, so much depends on what these people look like. I mean, you know, how old is Matthew Shore? Is he at all good looking? Or is he in fact a rather retiring type who does that whole soliloquy and more an introspective mumble? And presumably Edward is meant to be devastatingly attractive to women, although it may just be power, which, as someone said, is a great aphrodisiac. But what I was wondering about was just, where is she wearing that jewel that he keeps talking about? Because
on her hand.
On her hand, yeah. So how close does he get, and how sexy does the scene become? In fact,
yes, I think we can work in the assumption when they're talking about a jewel, they are possibly talking about a different jewel. There, absolutely. Sarah.
Just to go back as well, what Helen said before, that when she brought attention to that line about how Jane doesn't care about being, ennobled. I think that's a really telling line. It's you can play that absolutely as, oh, she's just saying the thing that she needs to say because she's in front of the king, and she's just kind of, laughing it off in a very kind of way that a good modest wife should do. But actually, if you take that as a genuine statement, as Helen said earlier, that didn't really happen. That's fairly radical. That to me, that really small sentence suggests to me that under the quiet exterior, there's a heart beating there that has very strong opinions, doesn't take any shit, and doesn't necessarily want to fall in with what's kind of fashionable in the court, or what is like perceived to be current normal practice in the court. That tells me that she is actually a very deep and interesting character, or at least you could choose to play it that way.
We've got Elizabeth and Eric.
Yes, just going from what Sarah said, I think that both Shaw and his wife are quite brave, because Shaw knows it's the king and he denies him. And Jane as well, she seems to not believe Shaw that he is the king, but she knows there's someone important in disguise. And the fact that they reject the king's advances, I think, makes them very brave characters.
Eric?
I was going to say that, because we were talking about the sort of history of disguise and the politics of disguise in sort of, theater and whatever. The thing that made me think of was actually King Arthur, all that mythology about Uther and, how he was disguised and sort of, how he spent time with Igraine, whose husband then died. And I was thinking that if you parallel that with what's happening here, a noble woman would might actually be sort of justified in doing it. Whereas sort of here, they're sort of going, well, why the hell are you not doing, why are you not making this social leap? Because of true love? That kind of, I don't know if that's a way of reading it, but that's what came to mind.
Yeah, I'd go to potentially other myths as well. How many gods do we know turn up to someone they fancy in disguise? Wondering if there's a connection there. Probably not. Okay, we're about to go into final thoughts. I just want briefly, before we leave scene 17, I just want to shout out to the first and second apprentice, because I thought what's really nice is it centers them as a locality and what their day-to-day lives are like. I also love the fact that the first and second apprentice have banter that they presumably do every day. It's that thing of, what's the clock? It's 6 by All Hallows, and he's lying and steal will bring you to the gallows. I bet he does that every single day, and it's really annoying. And it's just that I really like. Yeah, again, all of the characters, even tiny characters, have just a little spark to give you something to do with them. They're not cardboard cut. None of these characters are cardboard cutouts. Even if they only have 1 or 2 lines, and I think that's absolutely fab. Okay, I'll go around for final thoughts. Tamara, what are your thoughts? Having obviously this is your second session, so you're in the groove. It's your last one for the week, so hopes for the future, as well as how are you finding the play so far?
I was a little bit distracted by Sammy because he's needy today, but I tried to take notes. So yes, I today, even more than yesterday, I felt like there isn't a single scene that wouldn't work as a little sketch for some reason, because there's so much in those scenes that I'm just fascinated by the psychology of this play. And yeah, I learned a lot because I had no idea about the forsooth thing. So that's just a personal note that is the thing I learned today. And yeah, I'm not. We talked about Edward and is he hot or is it just the money? And I think that's probably gonna really inform the play, that casting, because you can play it one way and you can play it the other way, because you can make the audience question more. We joke, but you can, at least until this point, I don't know how it ends, you can make the audience question how genuine he is with Jane Shaw, I think.
Okay, yeah, big question, hot or not? I'm going to go with hot because Nell really fancies him and does not know who he is.
Right.
And he's more fanciable than the other courtier as well. So I think that's an important question about casting. Is who do you put in? It's got to be someone who's can do well. Can't go below a 6. It's got to be a 7, 8 at least, to be really judgmental about it. Yeah, he's got to be a hot young king. I think that's what the play is telling us. That's what we learned today. It's an interesting question of that question also of power, and you add power to the dynamic as well, the Henry Kissinger sort of aspect to this. And can you ever he tries to woo Jane in disguise again, so it's like he is on some level trying to say, I don't want this to be about me and my power, I want to woo you because of who I am. And then and then that doesn't work. And so he discovers himself, which always sounds like he's a flasher on Hampstead Heath. There's all sorts of questions that I'm really loving there. Thank you. Eric, final thoughts?
I was going to say that because I just had this flashback of what we were talking about yesterday. Or maybe it was the day before, I don't know, when Falconbridge arrived upon the scene and sort of went, yeah, this is, to attack London, and talking of London as Troy. And then I can't help but wonder if sort of Jane Shore is going to be the Helen of Troy in this situation, but sort of going, no, I don't really want to go with Paris, but he dragged me here, kind of the sort of powerful young king character. And I'm very curious to see what happens next, but I can't help but wonder if it's going to, it's probably going to end very sinisterly because, he's a king and it's a history play, which, as the messengers like to remind us every now and then.
Yeah, we again have had really strong messengers turning up saying, "Hey, we're in a history play, people." Every so often, I'm really loving that messenger energy that we're getting today. Elizabeth, final thoughts?
Yeah, I really enjoyed today. I think the two things came out of today that were really interesting. The first one was Edward IV and the politics of disguise, which I thought would make a really brilliant paper that I'd love to read. And the other one, Edward, is he hot or is it just the money? And that was from Tamara. I thought that was brilliant. I really enjoyed that one as well. I've been only here for 2 out of 3 sessions, and I'm going to miss tomorrow, but I'm back on Friday for Jack Straw. So I'm quite excited to watch tomorrow's and to see how it all pans out. I think the scenes work really well. I think it was Tamara that said this, that the scenes work really well individually. Even though I missed yesterday's session, I could jump back in. Because the scenes, the way they're constructed, makes it really easy to dip in and dip out.
Excellent. Lois, final thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a terrific play. I mean, it compares well with any other history play I know, really, in terms of the interest of the characters and the situations. And I think there's some very clever things, like the way that Henry VI never appears, and he's mentioned several times, and there's always this sense of, is he the rightful king, and what did he do in the past, and what's his background compared to the Yorkist background, and did he get murdered or did he die? And I mean, it's really quite interesting that you've got a sort of parallel story in which we're not in the room where it happened, if you like. We're in a different room for this play. And yeah, I think one ends up wanting very much to know what's going to happen to, particularly to the Shores, who are both quite sympathetic characters.
Yeah, the play really has no interest in the Wars of the Roses at all, and it's that story that, as Lois was saying, it's happening in another room. I love the way that we had that very brief conversation in one of the scenes where someone was saying, "Oh, was he murdered? I don't know," and it's literally nobody knows, and the play doesn't tell us, and the play isn't interested in telling us. It's just a rumor, and that feels again very real. That it's full of all these characters who don't know the truth. It's not showing us the truth. It's just showing us the world that's around it. I absolutely love that. Dan, new to the play today. Have final thoughts?
Yeah, so I've been very quiet because it is my first and only day that I'm going to be here for it. So just a couple of comments on, yeah, I really, really enjoyed this play. I can understand why it's been printed. It was printed 6 times during the early modern period, in octavo form, no less. I'm not going to get into arguments of why it might have been an octavo versus quarto, but still it is worth noting that it was printed that many times. I agree with Tamara when she made the remark that I guess all of them seem to be their own little vignettes. They are all very strong scenes by themselves, and a lot of emphasis on the drama rather than on the politics, I thought, at least from what I had seen. Just some comments from the research I had been doing on it. Stuff I did not actually know until today. I'm glad to find out. In one of the octavas, the third one, it's been heavily annotated, and possibly by a bookkeeper. At least that's what the annotation suggests. This I've not verified at all. But what's interesting is in the scene that we were looking at with the king coming in, the king leaving, as you saw with the very descriptive stage directions, trumpet sound, this and that, he starts from the table. The annotator had indicated that cornets will sound at the beginning as well as at the end of the scene, which suggests that they're playing this up for a little humor. I thought, like, why, it's like he's leaving and now we're going to go start playing the trumpets again. And just, I mean, we don't know when this was annotated. It could have been at the beginning or, of the 17th century or later. But it just gives us a window into at least how one was thinking of staging this play there. So something that I really want to look at. The other thing is when this was first printed, 1599, yeah, a lot of history plays were being printed during this time period. So I would love to see how this dialogues with the other ones there. I mean, obviously, well, can't talk about that one, but anyway, there we go.
Yeah, it's I haven't done that much looking into this because it's slightly outside of our main focus at the moment, but this is a play that goes through quite a few playhouses very quickly and shifts and changing of companies as well. So it's a play that copes with different spaces and different people potentially over a very short period of time in its initial life. And it seems to have a very interesting initial history. of which I don't want to go into too much here because it's not quite what we're about, and also there's just so much I haven't really got my head around it, so I kind of don't want to go there too much. But yeah, I think there's so much to dig out of this, both in the life of the play and the life around the play. I think this is going to be this is a keeper. Alan, final thoughts?
Yeah, I think actually Tamara summed it up very well. There are very well written characters, there are very well written scenes, many of which would work extremely well as standalones. What I'm still not getting is the through line. And it's confusing the hell out of me. And is making it less enjoyable, I think, therefore, from my point of view.
I think this is definitely one where the second look process will be really helpful, actually, to get a sense of how the play flows. I mean, we're starting a lot, and we're doing it over 4 sessions. I don't think it's possible to make the play feel... I think it is episodic. I think we're absolutely... There's no doubt about that. And I think returning to the points we've made a few times, I'm definitely feeling this would break up very nicely into episodes of a series. I think it would suit this play very well. If only because then you could really dig into the detail of the characters in each scene in a way. So yeah, I think it's still a very valid point that how this plays as a show continuously through is a slightly open question. We might need to do some work to make it function better in that way. If it feels like whether that's a real thing or whether that's just our impression because of how we're reading it. It's the same as today, you know. I'll come back to that later. Lynn, final thoughts?
Yes, I just had a couple of thoughts about the shores specifically that I didn't share when we were discussing those. I think that Sarah's observation that still waters run deep is spot on. Even though reticence and obedience were considered virtues at this point for women, there's also a kind of strategic advantage to it for Jane. When you're a person who's in an almost powerless position, you don't have any recognized authority, and there's a big power differential between you and the person you're dealing with, silence and equivocation are basically your only means of having a little bit of traction in that situation. Not showing, keeping your cards close to the vest is the only way Jane has of having any kind of control of the situation. So I think the idea that she's actually very smart and the wheels are definitely turning and she's going, okay, how do I handle this? I think that's absolutely what's going on there. And I also sort of had a thought about Shore's last little outburst, oh God, twixt the extremes of love and fear, that whole thing. And I'm afraid I don't feel particularly empathetic with Shore at that point. His complaint seems to be, oh, it's great to have a beautiful wife, but then everybody else wants her too, and that's a bad thing. Oh, woe is me. Yeah, my heart is not breaking for you. That just seems really the underlying values of that is really misogynistic. It's like my wife is like this beautiful possession that everybody wants, and it completely denies her humanity and her agency and the difficulty that she is in as a conscious subject. It's all about me. So I'm afraid that my heart does not go out to Shore very much, and that little monologue doesn't help.
Yeah, it's in my head when that was going, all I was hearing is when you're in love with a beautiful woman. That was just playing in the background. It's not often I'm going to get to say this, but it reminded me of the same problem we had with the end of Ralph Royster Doyster. I don't think this play's ever been connected with that one before. Who knows? Helen, final thoughts?
My take on this, as you would expect, comes from a different place. What we had here for me was 3 fantastic expositions of the vital importance of women in the early modern economy. my civic leaders, aldermen, whatever, not in London but elsewhere, their wife would die and they would marry within 2 months. They would remarry within 2 months, because someone like a Goldsmith, as someone like a Lord Mayor, absolutely had to have a wife in order to provide the other half of the business. He does the outside business and supervises the work of the apprentices. She keeps the house and the shop going. And the Lord Mayor really can't be a proper Lord Mayor without a Lady Mayoress, because who's going to control the servants? Who's going to make sure the place is dusted? Who's going to order the banquets? And even Hobs with his Nell, he would be living in a complete and total pigsty with his rats if it wasn't for the fact that he had a daughter at home who was keeping the other half of his economic life in order.
So we've got a
And
demonstration of labour.
Sorry?
The demonstration of female labour and the importance of it.
Absolutely, and also that it was always a partnership, or pretty well always a partnership. But the reason I'm excited by it is because it's the first play I've seen where this is recognised. The first play that we've done here, where this has been recognised.
There may be some additional stepping stones in between this and our usual stamping ground, but yes, it's something I think we will be seeing more frequently in the future. Sarah, final thoughts?
I want to go back to what Alan said, because I wasn't here for the first 2 sessions, and it has absolutely blown my mind to read these scenes today and to think there were 2 sessions before this, because the writing is so much has been accomplished in 4 scenes. The writing is really deft, the characterization is complex, the psychology is deep, and so we've learnt so much about a set of characters in a relatively short time, even the ones that were only in like one scene today. I'm sure they I think both of them were in the play earlier on, but I'm thinking of Hob, was it? Hob or Hobs? Hobs and Falconbridge. I mean, both of them went on such an interesting journey, just in the scenes that they were in today. And then we're discovering all these different facets of Edward, and then we're seeing Jane's story, Jane's journey begin to develop and grow. And I'm amazed that so much has been accomplished in such a short number of scenes. I'm amazed, frankly, that there have already been two full sets of previous scenes, because I'm like, well, what was going on? Because, you know, if it was all written with this density and this complexity, I'm thinking, wow, this just must be a mind-blowing play. I really like it because I like the psychological stuff that you can get really into as an actor or a director and really chew on. And it strikes me that this, whoever it is, whether it's Heywood or whoever is writing it, this is someone who isn't so interested in making a history play for the sake of telling a history. He's more interested in humans and the relationships between humans and the motivations that cause humans to do certain things. And he's sort of used a history play structure to hang off what he's actually really interested in exploring, which is humanity and the relationships between people.
Stephen, final thought.
Feel kind of guilty, really, because I'm doing the historical nerd thing rather than these kind of wonderfully rich character readings. But and people may well have said it already, but I think one of the kind of, Helen spoke about what people knew already, and I think we should we should talk about Richard, really. Richard III, who is head of state, a sexual predator, as Lynn said. He also, so we've got the sense of Edward IV, this play, Edward IV, is in dialogue with all sorts of aspects of what people think about tyranny, predation, and so forth. Shaw, of course, is also part of Richard's story as a political kind of point to make against Edward. And back to Crosby Place again, I'm sorry, but that's where Richard III lives when he comes to London. That's where he's offered the crown. And so this kind of backstory about, here I am, poor old John Crosby, because I was born by a cross and I built this wonderful house called Crosby House. You know, anybody who knows anything about Richard in London is going to know that's where Richard lives later on. And so there's a kind of complex sense of, I don't know what you call it, you know, places of memory, historical geography, whatever you want to say, in terms of the setting. So back to the idea of dialogues, which people have spoken about. I think dialogues with plays, but also the kind of the foreknowledge and pre-knowledge that people have of some, at least, of these localities, which is especially sharpened if we imagine it taking place right in the middle of London instead of out of town on some kind of shopping estate on the South Bank.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and especially when we in the earlier sessions when we were talking about when there were an awful lot of name checks of specific locations as well. It was very it wasn't just London focused, it was London focused on places that were actually quite close to where one of the theatres, at least, that it was performing at was.
Could I just sort of jump in on that? There's a reference to All Hallows Bell. And All Hallows is literally next door to the Cross Keys in London on Grace Church Street. Actual Goldsmiths Row is somewhere else entirely. So when the apprentices come in and go, oh, by All Hallows Bell, unless it was an incredibly loud and very distinctive bell, you know, there's a kind of a reference there to a bell that you could possibly hear from inside a performance space on that particular street in London.
We have gone very long, but very briefly, Lynn, I saw a hand.
Just, yeah, to bounce off of Stephen, yes, I think that there was a sort of a familiarity with the way, with the history among the audience, and they would probably have been thinking of Richard III, and if the current administration was concerned to vilify Richard III, humanizing Jane Shore would serve that end, because he was very hard on her after Richard's death. So making her a good and decent person also does the work of making him seem like even more of a baddie.
Eric, very
sorry,
last
just
thoughts.
because we mentioned like Richard III, isn't that mentioned in like the reign of the troublesome reign as well, where like sort of at the beginning where I remember this distinctly because Aliki was in session as well, going, oh my God, I love how these characters are written. And there's a mention of like sexual abuse and stuff as well by Richard.
I don't know on that one. That's possibly one to pick up another time. I'm going to have to close the session. We've gone massively over, which is interesting because I think this is the shortest amount of text of the week, only marginally. So yeah, I have no additional final thoughts apart from this one, which I think is getting to the nub of the most important issues of the play. Edward IV, Hobbs, Falconbridge. Snog, marry, avoid. Answers on a postcard. Thanks to all the readers, and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.